I'm Red Wizard. That's my cat, Glitzy. And today we're doing another book review. This is How to Die by Seneca, and also edited, translated, and introduced by James S. Rom. I want to give a preface to this video. If you are struggling with things like depression, or suicidal ideation, or suicidal thoughts, first of all, you're online right now. There's plenty of resources out there. I would urge you to leave this video and instead either go watch cat videos, that usually helps me, or go to any of the many types of forums there are and like hotlines there are to discuss that kind of thing, because regardless of who you are, you matter. You do not deserve to die. You deserve to live just like the rest of us. But if you are mentally sound enough to handle this right now, yes, How to Die. Despite the title, this book is not saying that you should die, nor is it saying you should want to die. But it's actually very helpful to like recontextualize death, for me especially, because I have really bad asthma, as you can probably tell by how I talk and breathe, and I'm also fat, which makes it even worse. But I have something called somatic symptom disorder, which is, in a way, what used to be, like, hypochondria, but I don't believe they diagnose hypochondria anymore. They do diagnose somatic symptom disorder. I have got diagnosed from a psychiatrist, and basically what it is my body and my mind react and interact in such a way that when I feel something that other people could pass off as normal, for me, it's like, it can be, like, I'm scared that it's fatal. Like, it is, like, clinical hypochondria. If I feel, a certain spike in losing my breath, or I feel a certain way in my stomach, or I feel something in my arm, and my mind immediately, like, I'm fucking dying. Like, I'm having a panic attack, I'm dying, I'm having a heart attack, like, it's torture. But it is helpful being diagnosed because I can reason with myself. First of all, I take medicine for it, for my anxiety and panic, but also because I have this diagnosis, I can say to myself, hey, you've literally been diagnosed with an illness that makes you believe you're dying when you're fucking not, so you're probably fucking not, which helps me. And I say all of that to say that in this book, Seneca describes having breathing issues and having, and I quote, every ailment pass through me. And they didn't have the same diagnoses that we have today, in ancient Greek times, obviously. But it seems like what he's describing is asthma, and also to me, it seems like he's describing kind of similar to the issues that I have health-wise. So this book really hit home for me, because having an ancient Greek dude, like, relate, having myself relate so heavily to this ancient Greek dude, when I already love philosophy, it sucked me in immediately. And the book is, like, Seneca didn't, like, set out and write the book How to Die. It is a collection of letters that he wrote to different people throughout his life. And he did end up taking his own life because he was going to be put to death, and he thought that it would be more honorable to take his own life than to be put to death. And, to each their own. But what I like so much about this book is that he argues that death is not something that should be feared in the way that we often fear it, because it is a rite of passage for anyone who's alive. It's something that we all have to go through. It is a process that we shouldn't dread because it's going to happen. And I don't know if I said this yet or not. I really need to script these videos, but they actually, because they didn't have words for the diagnosis yet, they called it a Greek word that I'm not even going to try to pronounce, that meant rehearsal for death, which is what got this concept in his head, is that he had an illness literally called rehearsal for death. So he would say, when he was in these states of struggling to breathe and increased panic, that he would try to be happy, and he would try to let himself not be afraid, because death was a beautiful thing that had to eventually happen. And that he argued that things like Christianity and other religions have tried to, like, scare you into thinking that death is going to be this, like, scary, like, this afterlife, you might go to heaven, you might go to hell, you might go to limbo, you might get tortured, all this shit, but that he believes that in death there is nothing but peace. And his argument for that is that death is non-existence, and we've all experienced non-existence before. Before you were born, you were in a sense dead because you had no consciousness. You were not alive. You remember none of it. So in a way, you've already experienced what death will be like, and it is different, I guess, because when you've never existed at all, you can't ever have a period of wanting to survive. But now that we do have this period of wanting to survive, and we're biologically wired to want to survive unless there's, something wrong, it does complicate things. But I just love how he kind of makes you feel like death is something you've been through before. It helps you fear it a lot less. And he talks about how death is something that can happen so rapidly, so randomly, that there is just no point in spending so long being obsessed over it, fearing it, thinking about it, because it's going to happen regardless. So you might as well let it happen when it happens. And yeah, and it's a very touchy subject, which is why I wanted to have that little section at the beginning. I do not want anyone to take away from this that if you want to die, that you should. I don't think you should want to die, and I have, I've got persistent depressive disorder, and I've got people in my life who struggle with suicidal ideation and stuff. It is a touchy subject, and I don't want to be offensive on the matter, but I do think that you should try to keep going no matter what, and I hope if anyone out there struggles with these things, that they do indeed keep going, and if you can handle it, mentally, if it wouldn't, send you down a negative path, I do recommend reading this strongly, because despite my struggles with depression and suicidal ideation and health, reading this has actually made me much less suicidal, I guess, is the only way I know how to put that. So yeah, How to Die, Seneca, and James S. Rom. This is one of my favorite books I've ever read, and you should check it out.